I am Marissa Lane, a 19-year-old freshman at Cedarwood University in Oak Ridge. I have always been the kind of girl who would rather be in the background with a book than be the center of attention at a party. I enjoy my studies, but I also love the little things in life: the comfort of a warm blanket, the smell of fresh coffee on a chilly morning, and the sound of the rain gently tapping against my window. Coming to Cedarwood University was supposed to be an exciting new chapter for me. I expected freedom, friendship, and the chance to experience campus life. However, I did not account for having an obnoxious roommate. Byron was the first person I met when I stepped into our dorm room. He had a smile that dripped with overconfidence, and he immediately told me stories about how he was the most popular kid in high school. At that moment, I thought he might tone it down, but instead, he just ramped up his arrogance after move-in day. Byron loved to brag about the parties he threw back home, recounting tales of wild nights with friends, filled with laughter and gluttony. This was his brand, a high school superstar turned college king. He spent most of his nights throwing parties, and whenever he brought a girl back, I had no choice but to lie in the bottom bunk of our shared room, trying to cover my ears while my heart sank with every awkward moment. It was a frustrating situation, to say the least, especially when things got intimate. I still cannot believe I had to wake up with discomfort each time Byron brought a new girl to our room. It felt utterly disrespectful to me, and it began to fill me with resentment every day. I would get up and wander the halls, trying to find somewhere quiet to escape his loud, oblivious antics for a while. As the weeks went on, I felt my patience wearing thin. It all came to a head one evening when I overheard him boasting about his latest romantic escapade with a girl he had clearly wooed just to show off his charm. What made it worse was the thought of him treating her to a fancy dinner instead of the usual cafeteria fare. The idea began to take root in my mind. How could I make him pay for this constant lack of consideration? That is when I devised my plan for revenge, a little something that would give him a taste of his own medicine. I went to the campus store and picked up a box of Oreos. I was determined to add a bit of a wicked twist. I carefully opened the package, taking great care not to damage the rest of the cookies. I slipped a few pieces of X-Lax into the bottom of the box, carefully hiding them behind the safer, traditional Oreos that would be on top. On the evening of his date, I made sure to sit in the common lounge, my box of Oreos perched on my lap. I casually munched on the regular ones, waiting for Byron to make his entrance. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he wasted no time strolling over, full of excitement. "Marissa, are those Oreos I see?" Byron asked, practically drooling. I smiled and offered the box to him, unaware that it took every ounce of restraint in me not to burst out into laughter. "Hey Byron, do you want these Oreos? I'm feeling a bit full and I thought you might like some," I said, my voice casual and innocent. He looked like a kid in a candy store, and in mere moments he was munching away at the cookies, completely unaware that I had played a trick on him. "I am kind of starving," he said, grinning with Oreos smudged around his mouth. "I will not have dinner until later, so this will hold me over." I watched him devour those cookies, filled with glee over my small triumph. I could barely keep a straight face as he polished off several of the cookies, finally walking away with a thank you and a wink. I spent the evening with my friends, feeling buoyant and lighthearted, while Byron was blissfully unaware of what was about to unravel. The hours passed while I chatted with friends, lost in the excitement of revenge, but what I was really waiting for was the inevitable consequence of Byron's indulgence. Later in the night, he stumbled back into our dorm room, and his face told me everything before he even opened his mouth. He looked flustered, embarrassed, and mildly panicked. "Marissa," he exclaimed, his voice an alarm. "You would not believe how embarrassing my date was. I had to keep running to the bathroom every 5 minutes." I tried to suppress my laughter, but it bubbled beneath the surface as I maintained my composure. I listened as he recounted his misadventure while I sipped on a cheap college beer, sharing a conspiratorial glance with my friend who knew my plan. "I do not know what happened, but I could not even enjoy my dinner," Byron continued. A look of pure frustration marred his face. "Maybe the dinner just did not agree with you," I said, keeping my tone light. "You know how that goes." He shook his head, visibly confused and irritated, but too wrapped up in his own embarrassment to suspect anything nefarious. As I bantered with him, keeping up the facade of innocence, a wicked thrill coursed through me as I celebrated my small victory. I had taken a stand against Byron and his terrible behavior, and even though it was a minor act of revenge, it felt good to know that I had outsmarted him. The next few days were filled with quiet satisfaction. I would see Byron flip through his texts, most likely attempting to gauge how well his date went, but I could tell he was still rattled. There were days when he would complain about his stomach aches, but it was hardly a concern for me. It was difficult to walk down the hall without laughing at the thought of him trading laughter with some girl as he rushed to the bathroom, driven mad by my little scheme. But then a week went by, and things changed. I received a message from one of my friends saying that Byron had vowed revenge on whoever made him endure that disastrous date night. His pride was wounded, and I could see it festering through the campus gossip as those who had witnessed his distress embellished the story more. "Marissa, this is bad news," my friend cautioned one evening as we sat together on the steps of the dorm. "He is plotting something. You might want to watch your back." My heart raced. I had thought my little prank was over, but I could not shake the feeling that Byron was just getting started. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that I was not afraid of him, but deep down, I could feel a flicker of unease. I decided that I had to take precautionary measures. Then, a couple of days later, the storm hit. I was studying in the common area when I noticed Byron emerging from the hall with a look of mock concern on his face. "Hey, Marissa," he called out, wearing an eerie smile. "I heard about your little trick with those Oreos. Very clever, but I cannot let you get away with that." A pit formed in my stomach, but I refused to back down. "Oh, come on, Byron," I said, my voice steady. "You did not think I would ignore what I had to endure, did you? Maybe next time you should think twice before you bring someone into our shared room." He laughed unpleasantly, his eyes narrowing. "Consider this a game of tit for tat. You do not want to mess with me, Marissa. Trust me." His words left me shivering as he flashed a smirk and walked away. I needed to prepare for whatever he was brewing. The next few days, I could feel Byron watching, lurking in the corners of my world like a shadow. I reviewed everything I knew about him and gathered my thoughts. There had to be a way to outsmart him again. I decided to dig deeper, finding out more about his so-called popular status. It turns out, Byron was not quite as charming to everyone as he tried to make it seem. Conversations I had with other students revealed stories of him embarrassing people, being rude or dismissive. It hinted that Byron was a master of manipulation, but he also had a weakness. The last thing I should do was underestimate him. The trick was to expose him to his peers, display the real side of his character for a greater audience. After brainstorming a plan, I decided to get a group of friends together for an anti-Byron campaign. We described his antics, how he treated people, and what made him so unbearable. I put together a fun night at our dorm where everyone would share stories, and the theme would be my most awkward moment with Byron. When the night of the event came, everyone gathered and laughed, telling amusing stories about Byron without revealing too much. I managed to give the crowd engaging stories that showcased his arrogance while also keeping my identity under wraps. Byron was not present at the event, but the stories spread rapidly throughout campus. I wanted to ensure everyone felt comfortable sharing their experiences and how they dealt with his rudeness. Then, during the last story, I mentioned the tail end of my own story, the one where he had to run to the bathroom during dinner, and I found humor in my discomfort. I watched as people erupted in laughter, and my friends began to recognize how he was so charming on the outside, yet so insufferable underneath. They all expressed their disbelief that someone like Byron would walk through campus like a king after embarrassing everyone around him. The look on Byron's face when he heard about my success was priceless. He became furious, realizing he had been reduced to a punchline. I walked over to him, my heart thumping with adrenaline. His reaction, fury laced with humiliation, made it all worth it. "How does it feel to be outsmarted, Byron?" I smiled victoriously, knowing I had finally put an end to my torment. Before I walked away, I uttered one last thing. "Next time you want to disrespect your roommate, think about how it could come back to haunt you." It felt as though I had finally been delivered a sense of closure, a proper resolution to my ongoing battle with Byron. The victory burgeoned in my heart as I walked away, relieved that I could maintain my dignity while holding him accountable. Afterwards, I noticed an intrinsic change within myself. I was still that quiet girl who enjoyed her books and warm coffee, but there was now a part of me that felt emboldened. The experience reshaped how I viewed confrontation. It showed me I could stand my ground without losing my charm. I knew I had gained my independence and confidence, having faced and prevailed over my nemesis. My world felt lighter, and I became closer to those who had rallied around me throughout this ordeal. As weeks passed, Byron slowly faded from the focus of my thoughts, though the whispers and laughter followed him wherever he went. Cedarwood University became a place of openness, free from his arrogance, and I reveled in the joy of finally having a peaceful life. I reached a place of understanding, knowing that in confronting Byron I found a hidden part of myself and realized that I could tackle any challenge that came my way. It was an unforgettable experience that taught me the power of unity against a common foe, and it would stay with me as I ventured into new territories of life. So here I am, a little wiser and with a fiery spirit. I know that sometimes, in order to rise above, you must first confront the trials that come your way. The roar of this victory fuels my resolve, and while Byron may no longer be a part of my world, I will always carry the story of resilience and triumph that blossomed in the face of adversity. This newfound strength will guide me through my years at Cedarwood University and beyond, reminding me to face every challenge head-on with a spirit unbroken and a heart unyielding.